All right, everyone, welcome back into another NBA DFS video. Going to be breaking down this Monday 6-game slate. Just a reminder, if you guys like the tools that you see in this video, they are available for Occupy Fantasy members. Typically speaking, we just show the OF board for you guys, okay, in this morning video, but we do have the lineup builder available as well. Very easy to use. Also, link to the Discord chat below as well, okay, if you guys want to join that. Great slate breaking coverage before lock in there. And then just make sure to like and subscribe to the video. That does help us continue to pump out this great NBA content for you guys. It does seem like there's a bigger edge later on in the season. So make sure you're showing that support. All right, so just starting out today, it's a very interesting slate. We have a bunch of if-then statements, if you will. So looking at the Pacers, they currently have a bunch of players questionable, significant players questionable. That's going to be Chris Durante, Isaiah Jackson a little bit, and Benedict Mathurin. I kind of expect one of those two to sit, Mathurin or Durante. And if they sit, if one of those two sit, that does open up a lot of value for Andrew Nembhard. I think he's going to be a very strong price point play. He's one of my favorite plays on the slate. Averages about 30 fantasy points per 36. With Haliburton off the court, and his ownership right now is pretty low because his price point is pretty high. We only have him projected to get around 29 minutes or so. I kind of expect that number to go up. This is going to be a close game. Most likely 1 point spread, decently high scoring game. I think it has a chance to be a higher scoring game than that. And so if we look at Nembhard, last game he had 37 minutes. Okay, we see him get 36, 33. Sure, the minutes have been a little bit sporadic, a little bit up and down, and we can't really trust the production, but I do think the upside is there for him in this game against the Hornets. That's only going to be a better play if we get news that Durante or Mathurin are going to sit. Sticking with that, we do know that TJ McConnell is going to be a very strong price point play as well. He's one of the better price point plays on the slate. We look at his per 36 production with Haliburton off the court. He averages about 9.8 fantasy points per 36, a bump in about usage of about 5%. So he is someone we can certainly be looking at as well. Does worry me a little bit if Mathurin is going to be on the court, though. Both can coexist together. For now, I think we play TJ McConnell. And he's not as chalky as I thought he would have been, especially on DraftKings where he's only 10%. I would say 23% is pretty much right for him. And then Mathurin as well. He is someone that could easily break the slate tonight. We can't really predict the minutes that they're going to give to him. But if we do get 30 minutes out of him, he does have the upside to go for 30, 35, would be an interesting pivot as well. And then Jordan Nwora, a player that we've been rostering a decent amount, coming in at very low ownership, which to me is surprising. We could potentially begin a 35 fantasy night from a guy at 1%. We have seen that upside be there for him. And it's not just shooting the basketball a lot. I mean, that's a good thing, right? But he's getting rebounds. He's getting assists. He's getting a couple blocks or steals, per game. So it's not a terrible price point play. But once again, that become a better play if we get news that Mathurin or Durante are going to sit. And then another team that we are kind of waiting on the injury news for is going to be the Minnesota Timberwolves. If we get news that Ant-Man's going to sit, and I think we're all kind of expecting him to sit, if we get that news, we have a lot of interesting plays. We do see Rudy Gobert pulling in a bunch of ownership, which I would say is more of a mistake. But at the same time, 24% is not enough for me to really go crazy with it. If we actually look at the OF index, he's basically the best play on the board concerning price point. Sorting by OF index, we scroll down, we can see Rudy Gobert standing out at 7.2. So it does make sense that people are going to be in on him. And so for now at 20-ish, 30 to 20-ish% ownership, I'm fine with that. If it gets above 30, we're probably staying away from that. Because his per 36 numbers aren't actually that high with Towns, with Ant-Man off the court. And if you want to throw Russell in there as well, you could. His fantasy point total per 36 actually only goes up about 3 fantasy points. So, we'd be looking at 37 fantasy points, which yes, at 7.2 would be great. And I do have him in the lineup for now, but once again, if he gets too chalky, I think we could pivot. And just looking at guys, like Reed could be someone that we're looking at. Reed gets the second most minutes with Ant-Man, Towns, and Russell off the court, behind Kyle Anderson. And so he is someone that if we know he's going to get right around 20 to let's say 23 minutes, he's an interesting price point play. We have a decent value here in Jordan, not getting that much ownership. He is someone that as it sits right now, I'd be fine plugging in a studs and duds build. Okay. Knowing that Ant-Man is currently questionable. I think we'd be looking at that. Kyle Anderson, perfectly fine with that. I'm really actually shocked at Kyle Anderson's ownership right now. I thought he'd be the highest. A lot of people are actually going with Taurean Prince, who is a little bit hit or miss, right? If he's going to be chalk value, I'd be fine actually just fading the value chalk on this team and going with Jordan instead. I'd say the likelihood of them both producing is about the same. Yeah, obviously we're favoring Taurean Prince, but if you look at the per 36 numbers, it's actually Jordan getting more fantasy points per 36 than it is Taurean Prince. And Reed is actually the best one. So we do have a lot of stuff that we just need to wait for lock. So be in the Discord chat before lock. Okay. And we'll be covering that stuff because this is a very interesting situation. We just need to see the starting lineup really. And as it sits right now, the starting lineup is expected to be Conley. It's Edwards, McDaniels, Anderson, Gobert. Lots of injury questions though. I do think it's worth mentioning Memphis as well. Okay. Jaren Jackson currently questionable. If he were to sit, I think we'd be looking at Xavier Tillman. Probably a very strong standout price point play. Luke Kennard was someone I mentioned on last week, Friday's live stream as kind of a value play that we could pivot to from the chalk that ended up working out. I feel like he's a little bit priced up. Okay. I don't feel like we need to make that play. But if we get news that Jaren Jackson Jr. is out, we're probably looking at Aldama and Tillman. Those would be the two players I would want to be on the most. And then lastly, I do want to mention Utah because this is very interesting. We know that Colin Sexton and also Jordan Clarkson are out. Got Lauri Markkanen currently questionable. Okay. As it sits right now, I'm really shocked that Horton Tucker isn't the chalk. Okay. On FanDuel, 24%. We can kind of consider that chalk. On DraftKings, 11%. So on FanDuel, probably going to be even weight. On DraftKings, I would say we should be at least 24%. You look at his per 36 numbers, and I think that'd be the question. It's like we only have him projected to get 29 minutes. And that's probably accurate. Like we've only seen him get around that recently. But if we can get that number above it, like to 32, which obviously we don't control that, but that's what we're hoping for. It'd be great because his per 36 numbers are huge, especially because he's basically playing point guard. Okay. 39 fantasy points per 36, 28% usage rate. So that's about a 6.5 bump in usage and about 4 more points per 36, fantasy points per 36. So he becomes an intriguing play, especially in this game that's projected to be a high scoring game. To me, he's going to be someone that we'd be going out of our way to play. And I'm also very shocked at the ownership currently of Chris Dunn. I thought a lot of people would be going out of their way to play him. They are not, which we have him projected to get around 20 minutes, and we have seen him be productive in limited minutes. Once again, this is a pretty appealing game. His per 36 numbers are actually the highest on the team with Colin Sexton and with Jordan Clarkson off the court. Obviously, we tossed in Mike Conley there as well on a different team. But it's highly appealing. Like if we know that he's going to get 20 minutes with the upside to potentially get, a little extra run, he could easily go for 35, 30. And at this price tag, we would certainly take 6x. It's a very appealing game. That's a cheap, easy way to get some exposure to a game that's one projected to stay close and is going to be high scoring. Now, I do think we have some interesting value here as well, especially if Lauri Markkanen sits. So we have seen this value play kind of pop recently in a couple of games. 22 minutes against Orlando, 28 DK points. 30 minutes against Miami, 33 DK points. Okay. And we have kind of seen that be consistently there for him. So if we get news that Markkanen is going to sit, I kind of imagine that he will become the chalk. But as it sits right now, he is kind of a decent flyer value play at 3.6. Not some we're going crazy with, but these are kind of the unique value plays that you can be on late in the season that have a lot of high reward, because if he randomly gets, an extra rotation, that could be huge. That could be GPP winning huge. Okay. And we have seen that happen with some value plays. I mentioned Luke Kennard earlier. Heck, on Friday's live stream as well, I mentioned Sandro for the Spurs. He was chalk, and I wouldn't say it was a chalky disappointment the previous slate prior to that, but didn't really produce the way people wanted him to, and then everyone got off of him, and then he was still a very good play. These are the kind of interesting plays that get me excited about late season NBA DFS. So just looking at it, let's go ahead and sort by ownership right now. As it sits right now, the chalk is going to be Taurean Prince, Tyus Jones. I agree with Tyus Jones as the chalk. He makes a lot of sense on FanDuel. It's a very cheap price tag. I don't see a way in which we are not playing on FanDuel, to be honest with you. Maybe if this number gets to 60%, then sure. But he is someone that even at 7K on DraftKings, I think we consider playing because he has the upside to go for 40 DK points, 45 DK points. Okay. I did say I feel like Taurean Prince, that's probably a little bit too high for him. Okay. Not a lock and load to go off. Maybe be slightly underweight on the field. And we would probably pivot to a different Minnesota player, Reed or McLaughlin. To me, Andrew Nembhard should be the chalk on FanDuel, only coming in at 5.9. I think that's going to be a strong kind of leverage spot. Then we look at his price tag on DraftKings, 6.1. He's coming in at 2%. I think that's going to be a decent leverage spot, especially if that news breaks our way. That obviously can change before lock. Looking at the ownership on DraftKings, much more spread out. A lot of people are liking PJ Washington tonight. I don't disagree with that. Kind of just due for a better game. Gets a great matchup, obviously, against the Pacers. Coming in at a cheap price tag, I'm fine with that. We do see Jalen Green pulling in some ownership, and I kind of agree with that as well. His price tag is just simply too cheap. The minutes have been there, and I guess that'd be the biggest worry. The back end of a back-to-back. Will they get 39 minutes, 38 minutes? I could see them getting 35, 34, and then obviously the ceiling isn't there as much so. But as it sits right now, I think the assumption is that they are still going to get that run. And even if they don't, this is an appealing game. and we can be attacking this game, potentially one of the highest scorers in this game, maybe the second highest scorer in this game, at 6.8, that's highly appealing, right? Like we want to be on a play like that. And then while I mentioned that game, like Klay Thompson, if you look at his like sportsbook prop points, it's like set at 22 and it's favored to go over 22. So let's just say he gets 22 points. That's going to mean he's been making some threes. If he's doing that, obviously his production can be there. This is also another cheap way in which we could potentially get 40, 50 DraftKings points in a highly appealing game. Obviously, if we're playing Klay, we're not playing Curry. And once again, if we just look at the OF index, let's see which players are popping up the most. Luka, Embiid, Sabonis, I'm fine with that. And then we got Curry. Okay, so want to point out Curry's right here, Klay's right there. So both are not terrible plays, but at the same time, if you're not playing Curry, I think you just have to play Klay. We are also waiting on news on Kyrie and Luka. Okay, we both have them active, okay, but they could sit. If they sit, we kind of know where we're going with. It's going to be Green, it's going to be Hardy. But looking at, we can kind of clearly see that Rudy Gobert's kind of the best play, and then we go down to maybe Desmond Bane. I'd be fine with that. We got Kyle Anderson popping up in there. So it would suggest that maybe 2 Minnesota players are going to be the starting points of our build. And then just looking at the best value across both slates, Gobert, that kind of just tells you how good of a play he is. Tyus Jones, it's going to be tough to avoid him on FanDuel. It just is. Too cheap. DiVincenzo, still pretty cheap on FanDuel. I'm fine with ending up on him. Not someone you're going out of your way to play, but, you know, I mentioned the shoulder shrug plays a lot. Like if you're closing out your build and you just need a solid play and you don't want to rebuild, he'd be that guy. Mike Conley, you know, I'm fine with it. 11%, 8% ownership is probably correct. So let's go ahead and flip it. DraftKings value, Rudy Gobert, Taurean Prince, Caruso's popping up again. We see two of the Kings, and this could be a cheap way to get some exposure to that game, appealing game against Utah. I don't mind that. Obviously, we'd only want to play one of those two, but we can see, like, we don't have any elite value popping up in there. Like, I would argue we have bad value popping up in there, and Caruso as well. Okay, so we could potentially be chasing higher upside value at virtually no owners. So that's encouraging to me. And then so kind of getting into the first look build here, we can see I'm going TJ McConnell. I'm kind of hoping that Durante and Mathurin sit. Obviously, if they play, that's going to change it. Jalen Green, just at his price tag, it's going to be very difficult to avoid him. I think this is just the correct play. Horton Tucker, we're getting a point guard at the shooting guard slash small forward position. I put him at the small forward here. We have seen him go off, guys, in the same kind of role. Okay, so it's just very difficult not to like him tonight at 6.8. The thing he's easily going to be able to get to 5x is just, can he deliver 6x, over 6x? That's my biggest worry. I will be chasing this game at a cheap price tag, playing a player that's going to be getting a lot of usage. Hopefully he can get 33 minutes or so. And then this is the biggest question mark, I would say, on this build, especially with TJ McConnell as well. We'd be making pivots if we get news that Mathurin and Durante are both active. If one of them are active, we'll have to wait and see. Right now, as it sits, I think Wara is a strong price one play. I think we're going to get around 30 DraftKings points, fantasy points. So I'm still fine with him as a play, you know, not coming in that much ownership. We are just going to eat the chalk, I think, as it sits right now for Rudy Gobert. He's not too chalky as well. Once again, if he gets above 30%, I think we start to rethink. Andrew Nembhard, you know, his brother just went off in March Madness. If you want to read into narratives at all, maybe he's going to be a little bit more motivated to play well. Who knows? He's been playing well, okay? And if the minutes are there, we see him get 37, 36 minutes. Like, if those minutes are going to be there for him, I think that's kind of huge. Obviously, this is a better matchup going against Charlotte. It's a matchup that we want some exposure to. I think this is a unique way to get some exposure to him. Now, do we want to play McConnell and Nembhard in the same build? That's the biggest question. Probably not. And so that's where we could maybe get unique. Maybe we go Chris Dunn, who also seems too cheap. Now, he's only going to get 20 to 25 minutes. We're hoping for a lot of production in that. We're hoping for 5x, 6x, okay? Does feel like we could potentially be forcing this, but I want to get some exposure to this game in a unique way. I think this would be a way that we could do it. Kyle Anderson, just continue to roll with him. Feels a little bit too cheap for his production recently. And then we could kind of eat the chalk, I guess, in PJ Washington. So that's it. That's the first look build. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the coverage. If you did, make sure to give a like and subscribe to the channel. Remember to be in the Discord chat live before lock. Remember, if you guys want access to any of the tools that you saw in this video, the OF model, the lineup builder, click the link in the description below as well. All right, thanks for watching. Let's have a good slate. And as always, good luck.